Northern Territory Police Officer Zachary Rolfe has been found not guilty of murdering a young Aboriginal man he shot dead during an attempted arrest in 2019. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers are advised the following story contains images of a person who has died. 19-year-old Kumanjai Walker was shot 3 times during a struggle with officers in the remote community of Yuendumu, northwest of Alice Springs. Today, the Supreme Court jury also acquitted Constable Rolfe of the alternative charges of manslaughter and engaging in a violent act causing death. The unanimous verdict was delivered in just under 7 hours. Our reporter Bridget Brennan joins us now from Darwin. And Bridget, there were emotional scenes outside the Supreme Court in Darwin after the verdict just a short time ago.
Kirsten, very much so. Inside the courtroom when the jury delivered their verdict after deliberating for a little under 7 hours, the courtroom was quite quiet. Many people had their heads bowed. Constable Zachary Rolfe himself smiled, hugged his defence barrister. But outside court, when the family of Kumanjai Walker came out of the doors here at the Northern Territory Supreme Court, there is clearly deep distress over this verdict. Many family members had travelled from Central Australia throughout this entire process. The jury heard nearly 40 witnesses over almost 5 weeks, and this has been, of course, a highly charged and emotional trial. In fact, the judge referenced that when he thanked the jury for their service. But the family of Kumanjai Walker are very much still grieving over the loss of a very much loved 19-year-old man and grieving over this verdict, it has to be said. Let's hear from one of the elders from Yuendumu, Ned Hargraves, who'd been in the court the entire time for this trial.
I just say, when we are going to get justice? When? We are the people of Warmala. Our ancestors were roaming around, living in this country. Karinjala, Muajarime. No guns. No guns. In the rural remote community. We don't want no guns. Enough is enough. It's got to stop.
So that's Ned Hargraves there speaking, a senior community elder from Yuendumu, a Warlpiri man speaking about the community's call for there to be no guns in remote Aboriginal communities. Of course, Kumanjai Walker was shot 3 times in November 2019 during an attempted arrest, which is where killed at home in Yuendumu in Central Australia. Of course, the focus of this trial over the past 5 weeks. Let's take a listen now, Kirsten, to Samara Fernandez-Brown, Kumanjai's cousin, who's also been in the court for this entire process and was also very emotional when the verdict was read out.
We were robbed of the opportunity to say goodbye to him. Sometimes I think about how he must have felt in his last moments. Was he scared? Terrified, I'd imagine. Was he in pain? In excruciating pain, I would think. And he was alone. His death has affected our community and our family in ways that we can't describe.
Bridget, what has Zachary Rolfe and his legal team had to say following the verdict?
Well, Kirsten, Constable Zachary Rolfe had very little to say during this trial. When media were awaiting people walking out from the trial over the past 5 weeks, he rarely gave much at all. He didn't say anything. He did take the stand during this trial, but gave a brief statement outside of court. Today, let's take a look.
Obviously, I think that was the right decision to make, but a lot of people are hurting today. Kumanjai's family and his community, and he didn't need to get to this point, so I'm going to leave this space for them.
We also heard from the defence barrister David Edwardson QC, who reiterated a comment he'd made in court, Kirsten, that this was an appalling investigation into Constable Zachary Rolfe's conduct and that this was a very tragic outcome for everyone.
A young man died, and that's tragic. At the same time, Zachary Rolfe, in my view, was wrongly charged in the first place. It was an appalling investigation, and that's very much regrettable. A number of public figures have had quite a lot to say before he was charged, and again, that's regrettable and unfortunate. But I have one last thing to say. Consequences will flow.
So, Kirsten, an historic, controversial, highly charged trial has wrapped here at the Northern Territory Supreme Court. The jury finding Constable Zachary Rolfe not guilty on murder and 2 alternate charges.
Our reporter is Bridget Brennan in Darwin.